Okay. Good morning, everybody. I love that. Time is 10:01. I'll call the February 27th, 2025 Planning Board meeting to order. We have the following board members with us. In person, we have Commissioner Washington.
Good morning.
Virtually, we have Commissioner Giraldo.
Good morning.
And I'm Chair Shapiro. Please note that the deadline for all participant pre-registration and for all submission of materials and exhibits was 12 noon on the Tuesday before this planning board meeting. Registered speakers may join the meeting with a link provided in the email provided by the planning board office or listen by phone by utilizing the call-in number provided in the email. And of course, anyone may tune in to watch our proceedings via live stream. And if you wish to speak or become a person of record, you can use the online web form. In addition to the commissioners here on the podium, we're joined by our principal counsel, Mr. Warner. We have our planning board administrator, Ms. Jones. We also have Ms. Ford, our technical hearing writer, Sherry Connor, our acting development review division chief.
Morning.
Good morning. And Mr. Flanagan and Mr. Connor helping us with technology behind the scenes, as are a number of folks from our staff who are doing a great job at making this happen. I really appreciate all the work and all the running around and this transition is working. So thank you all for everything you are doing. On the agenda, we'll start with item 2. We have draft minutes from our February 2025 planning board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. With no discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Next, we'll move on to item 3A on our agenda. This is legislative updates and approvals. I will turn to Ms. Borden, who will run us through the process. And she is joined by Ms. Jordan Falcon-Colbert. Good to see you both.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I get the ability to share my screen? It'll help, I think, if we can follow along the documents.
They're working on it right now.
Okay, great. So we have 3 items for you today. One of them is just a briefing. The other 2, we will need votes on them. And let us get started. Okay, I'm going to start at the end here. Oh, if I can just move that out of the way. There we go. I'm going to start with the ADU bill. So I'll make this bigger so that it's not so small. Okay, so the legislature has sort of decided to do a bit of a affordable housing 2.0. So last year we had a number of bills, probably in excess of 10 bills, that we were reviewing for the governor's push on affordable housing. This is one of the items that had been sent to a task force to study the issue of accessory dwelling units. So that task force wrapped up its work, and now we have this bill. The bill would, from what we understand, the sponsors of the bill are intending to require all counties to allow accessory dwelling units. Now, the issue with the bill is that it is very, very detailed. The bill looks a little bit like a zoning ordinance provision because it doesn't just require counties to have an ADU program, it tells them how to do it, right down to parking and setbacks, and it's really just too specific. All of our counties are different. We have different zoning ordinances. We use different nomenclature. We've got different issues with parking, etc. So it doesn't make any sense for the state to tell us how to do ADUs. So what we did was we reached out to one of the sponsors. The sponsor in the House is Delegate Stewart. And we spoke to him and shared with him our concerns about how, the details of the bill. And just if I back up a little bit, MACO has the same concerns. MACO issued a support with amendments, significant amendments, because in their view, the bill doesn't follow any of the recommendations of the task force. The task force recommended that they back off of the details, that they, go ahead with the mandate if they want to, but that they let each individual jurisdiction, design their own program to make sense for, their locality. And so, we're basically in lockstep with MACo. And so the Delegate Stewart said to us, okay, tell us what this looks like, create, an amendment that would do what you're talking about. So that's what we did. So we have an amendment proposal that we have before you. And so, we're not opposing the bill. We're not recommending that you oppose it because, this is apparently what the legislature wants to do. But we would like to, sorry, I'm getting some feedback. We would like the legislature to acknowledge that, an ADU program for Prince George's County might look very different for, an ADU program in Baltimore City or in Garrett County. Those places are too different to expect us all to have a one-size-fits-all approach. So that's what we're doing here. We hope that that is consistent with how you view how we should do it, and we're happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, colleagues. Any questions?
No questions here.
The only question I have is, Commissioner Giraldo, are you with us? I think you may be frozen. Let's give it a technical second here. I just want to make sure he is with us so we have our quorum. While he's doing that, Ms. Borden, question is, the amendments that we are proposing, are those the same, different than what MACo is proposing, or are they having us take the lead on the amendments, or how's that working?
Well, the amendments that MACo is proposing are, they have sort of, I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry.
I think Jordan's got her hand up, if it's all right, Ms. Borden.
Go ahead.
No problem. I just talked to MACo this morning. They requested our comments because I believe they're going to try to look through ours through a different lens. Initially, they were probably going to do support with amendments. Now they were thinking about possibly not supporting the bill, but once they see our amendments, I think they're going to try to work with us through the House sponsor.
Excellent.
Yeah, the letter that they had posted on their website had indicated in general terms the kinds of amendments they wanted to see. They didn't go specific like we did with strikeouts and additions of actual text. So that's the difference. And so, yeah, I hope that when they see what we've done, that they can get behind what we've done, and we're all saying, singing from the same hymn book.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. All right, thank you both for your leadership on this. Commissioner Giraldo, any questions for you? You're on mute.
You see?
No questions.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's no questions, this is one that you want us to take action on?
Yes.
Okay. So I would look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we support with amendments House Bill 1466 and companion Senate Bill 0891.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo with no discussion. I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo?
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. All right, next.
Thank you. Our next issue is the, let's see here, where are we? Oh, let me start here. So every year, the Department of Legislative Services issues a number of detailed recommendations on the budget, on the state budget. And these recommendations come in the form of recommendations to alter a reconciliation bill. Okay, it's a bill that reconciles the budget proposed by the governor against the legislative priorities. Okay, so This came out yesterday, this recommendation, and DLS is recommending that the state divert funds from the transfer tax formula, the real estate transfer tax formula. These funds are currently going to program open space, land acquisition, program open space, public access program, green space equity program, public open space local program, the Maryland agricultural land preservation program, and the rural legacy program. All of these programs currently get money from the state transfer tax. And DLS is recommending, in order to close the budget gap, a diversion of those funds to the general fund for the next 3 fiscal years. That is a significant hit for our parks departments. And so we just got this yesterday. We literally had like an hour to put together this letter. It's a very, very general, don't do this letter. And we fully realize that we need to work with our parks departments to get more meat on these bones about what impact this would have in our parks departments, in our communities. So we're going to be working on that in the next several days, but we really needed to get something in as a placeholder to say, this is a problem, we can't have this. There have to be other ways to find money, short of completely defunding all of these programs. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions.
Questions?
No.
No questions from me either. I'm glad you all are on this one as well.
Thank you. We will need a vote in support of opposition to this, and also your direction that we can work with our parks departments and continue to engage on this. We do hope that there is some room for negotiation here.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that we oppose House Bill 352 and companion Senate Bill 321.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. With no discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0.
Okay. One more. Sorry.
Yeah, one more.
One more. So the last one that we have is a briefing. We're not going to ask you to vote on this one, but it's a big one. Okay, this is the solar bill. We had been waiting for this one really ever since the session started. And let me just go through really quickly and tell you what's in the bill. So I'll start up here at the top. So this bill applies to solar energy generating stations. In other words, solar panels, the solar farm, what we used to call a solar farm, that have the capacity to produce more than 2 megawatts of electricity that are going to be for sale in the wholesale market. In other words, electricity that's going into the grid to be distributed by our electric companies. And or if it's a community solar program. So that's what this bill applies to. It does not apply to rooftop solar, carport, or canopy top solar, or brownfield sites. So properties that were sort of industrial sites that have all kinds of possible contaminants in the soil, this doesn't apply to them. It only applies to everything else that is above 2 megawatts. Okay. So the first part of the bill beefs up the notice provisions. So whenever the Public Service Commission gets one of these cases, they have to notify immediately several different bodies. They have to notify the county, municipalities within a mile of the project. All of these different places. They're General Assembly representatives. The interesting part is they haven't included bi-county agencies in this. So we really think that we should be on the notice list as well. So that's one of our concerns with the bill. And also, interestingly, in the definition of local jurisdiction, they've also left us out of that. So we think we need to be included in that. The other thing that the bill does is it establishes that when reviewing an application, the PSC shall consider certain matters. And these matters are really in the nature of development standards. So they have to consider or they have to check to make sure that the owner has provided a boundary of 150 feet, basically a setback, between any solar facility and occupied buildings that belong to somebody else. They have to provide a 50-foot setback between their facility and any parcel of land, so the property line that belongs to anybody else. So these are in the nature of development standards, which you would be very familiar with. They're setbacks. The other thing they've mentioned specifically is fencing. Generally, barbed wire fencing is not allowed except for critical infrastructure and protection of that infrastructure. So that's a little nebulous and gives us some concern, particularly in Prince George's County, where barbed wire is very much disfavored for any use. Going on, they've got provisions for landscape buffer. Again, these provisions are very specific. And these are provisions that the PSC is supposed to check when they review the case. Okay, so very specific planting requirements regarding the number of trees and how wide the planting buffer can be, etc. There are also provisions about limiting the mowing that would be allowed. Also about removal of topsoil, that they don't want them to remove a whole lot of topsoil before they put in the solar panels. The use of herbicides is also limited. So, these are pretty detailed regulations that the PSC is going to be checking as they approve these projects. Further, they're requiring that the solar energy owner enter into a decommissioning agreement, and that they post a surety bond to ensure that, once the life of the solar panels is done, that they will actually either decommission, or that they will provide a bond to make sure that happens, if we can't find the owner. So that sort of concludes what the PSC has to do and has to check and has to require of the solar panel owners. Then this section here that starts on page 8 of the bill starts with what the local jurisdictions may not do. And I think mostly the opposition from the counties deals with this section. There may be some more gentle opposition up above, but this is really the crux of the problem. So it says that the local jurisdictions may not adopt zoning laws or other laws to prohibit construction of solar energy generating stations. Now, that would seem to indicate that in places like the Ag Reserve in Montgomery County, that those zoning laws that protect the Ag Reserve from something like a large solar facility would be invalid or invalidated by this provision. It further says that the local jurisdiction may not deny site development plans. Okay, so you can't deny a site plan as long as if that site plan meets the requirements that we just talked about up above. So in other words, the local jurisdictions are being prohibited from adding any requirements other than what we just talked about. So, additionally, the local jurisdictions are required to expedite the review of site plans. So, on the one hand, you can't deny a site plan. On the other hand, you have to hurry up and review the site plan. The question really is, why would anybody review a site plan at all when they're told they can't deny them and they can't add any requirements to them? What is the point of having site plans at all? So there's a bit of confusion here as to why they're assuming that local jurisdictions would continue to review site plans when they can't regulate them, they can't zone them, and they can't deny them, and they can't add any additional regulations to them or requirements. So that's a bit of a confusing mix. In addition, and here's a real sticking point again, the state is prohibiting through I-1 here at line 28, prohibiting the local jurisdictions from collecting property tax, personal or real property taxes.
Oh,
And that is a big hit. I cannot, we haven't done the math yet for Montgomery and Prince George's, but yeah, I can imagine that's going to be a big hit. What the proposal is that they would allow the local jurisdictions to assess a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes, up to $5,000 per megawatt. That is going to be a lot lower than real estate taxes. So that's a problem for a number of the counties, and that is why, all of these things, but particularly that is why the counties have, through MACO, unanimously voted to oppose this bill. In addition, we have heard that the county council in Montgomery County has also voted to oppose the bill. So in speaking with MACO and hearing MACO talk about this bill, they have a number of concerns. A lot of the concerns are right on the screen right here. That's not, the sum total of their concerns. They're also concerned about the fact that these same provisions are being applied to the battery storage that often goes with these solar energy generating stations. So once the solar energy is generated, unless it's going directly into the grid, they need battery storage so that there is the ability to store electricity for times when the sun is not shining, for times when there is some issue with in terms of browning out or a blackout. And so the battery storage issue is it has been dumped in here into the solar bill. But battery storage looks very, very different from solar panels. Battery storage looks like an industrial use. It's these blocks of structures that are often in rows and that are often, quite, let's say, not aesthetically pleasing. And they look like an industrial setup. They look like small warehouses, basically. And why that would be treated exactly the same way as the solar panels is another question that MACO has and that the counties are concerned about, because it's one thing to have open solar panels where they are open underneath. You could have pollinators underneath them. You could have maybe agriculture, some sort of limited agriculture underneath the solar panels, but they are an open use. The battery storage is very different. These are structures, these are buildings. That makes sense. Right. And so And the other issue that they have with the battery storage is the safety issue, because if there's a fire, these battery storage units are very difficult to extinguish.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want special protections to be placed on on the battery storage units, and there's nothing in the bill about that. So MACO is opposed. At least one of our county councils has said that they are opposed. So our job, we feel, is to not get in the way of that. We know this is very sensitive to a lot of people in terms of, we have a lot of people who want solar to be a big part of our climate solutions goals. That there are people who really think that solar should be a major initiative that we should be leading. Maryland as a state should be leading on solar. But on the other hand, we don't want to forget about all of our other environmental goals. For instance, tree conservation. The solar use has been entirely exempted from the tree conservation laws. That, along with the exemption from taxes, that gives a lot of people pause, that we are possibly cutting off our nose to spite our face, that that what we're giving with solar, that we're taking away from other things that we need to make sure that we meet our climate goals, and that we are good stewards of the land, and that we don't cover all of our good agricultural soils with solar panels and battery storage. So I will stop there and see if there are any questions. We are, again, not asking for a vote. What we're asking is that you give us any comments so that we can incorporate your comments. We have prepared detailed comments that we will work with MACO to get our detailed comments into the discussion. We want to work through MACO because we don't want to be in any way getting in the way of that negotiation. And we hope that negotiation will be robust, because the bill as is just, it's gone a bit too far, in our opinion. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. Colleagues, questions for Ms. Borden?
No, just thank you for the thoughtful overview.
Commissioner Geraldo, anything on your side? Or he may be frozen again.
Yeah.
I think so. I've got some questions. Let's make sure that Commissioner Geraldo gets back online. So one question, the bill talked about you can't prohibit, but is there a distinction between prohibit and restrict? Because I was thinking, I don't know this, but I'm assuming what happens in Montgomery County are restrictions in the agricultural reserve, not a strict prohibition, but I don't actually know that.
Well, if you have a use table that says that solar is prohibited in your ag reserve.
Is that what it says? That's what I just don't know. Is it a flat out prohibition, or is it a restriction?
I think it's a flat out prohibition.
Okay.
Through the use table. Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that distinction's there. Other one is, I'm trying to understand how currently these come to us through our mandatory referral process.
Yes. And
so, which ultimately means we don't really have much, dare I say, authority to do anything about these anyhow. So I'm trying to figure out
what is the actual impact on us? Yes.
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up. So we also are not sure about that, and we're not sure because the bill doesn't mention us at all. It doesn't mention the regional district. It doesn't include us as a local jurisdiction. It doesn't even include us as a bi-county commission to get notice of these projects. So that is one of our major concerns, that we think that the bill should clearly indicate how these restrictions and also how these requirements are going to fit within or work with mandatory referral. And so, yeah, but again, it's a sensitive issue because particularly the folks in Montgomery County don't appreciate that mandatory referral is not an approval process, it's a review process.
Exactly.
And and so we've been doing that in Prince George's for years. And, for the most part, there are some cases that are more controversial than others, but for the most part, it works mostly because the PSC actually listens to our recommendations. In my experience, they listen and they implement our recommendations when we give them. So I think
that's one of the reasons why I'm asking is because, I agree with your approach, by the way, 100%. Let Mako take the lead. But I'm practically speaking, I'm not sure this is going to have a whole lot of impact on Prince George's. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. But we don't know. And the approach of going down the Mako route makes all the sense in the world.
That's exactly why we're taking this approach.
Okay. And then last question is, which is probably too in the weeds for us, but so many of these things related to detailed site plans require some measure of enforcement. I assume the PSC has no capacity for enforcement. So I'm trying to figure out the mowing and the fencing and the this and that.
Yes, that's a very good question. Certainly the PSC does have the ability to pull their what amounts to licensing to operate because they need their what's it called? I'm drawing a blank. I think it's called the their certificate
CCO,
of
public convenience.
Certificate of convenience, I think, or certificate of public convenience. They need that to operate. They cannot operate in the state without that. So it's like a licensing in that sense. But how many inspectors does the PSC actually have? Probably not that many.
But I wonder if there's some recommendation for a role for DPI or other sort of enforcement agencies. Might that be worth mentioning in our comments or to feed up into Mako?
We can certainly add that. That's a very good comment to add.
Okay.
The
other one is that you touched on this before, Gordon, but about because bi-county agencies are exempt. Could we interpret this to mean that they may say no real property taxes, but that excludes ours?
I don't think that'll get very far.
Right.
But be quiet about it. Maybe we can do that. But I think that's a really big thing for the counties to swallow. That's a big hit. It's a big hit.
All right, well, this is super helpful as always. Glad you're on top of it. I appreciate the approach. I think my colleagues are in agreement that the Mako approach is a good one. So, and you don't need us to take a vote on this. You're just looking for a sense of the body on this?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Commissioners, any other questions or thoughts or reactions?
No.
Nope.
Okay. All right, we're good to go. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to item 4 on our agenda, consent agenda. Is there a motion? I'm sorry, before that, anyone wish to oppose staff's recommendation or any board member wish to discuss any of these items? If not, then I'd look for a motion.
After consideration of the record for items number 4A, I move adoption of the staff findings and approval of the items on the consent agenda in accordance with the recommendation of staff.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo with no discussion. I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Now move on to our regular agenda items. We have 2 of them. First is item 5, detailed site plan DSP 23020, Central Industrial Park. We have Mr. Haller, who's representing the applicant. We have Mr. Cofield is going to be giving a staff presentation. I don't think we actually do have a few folks signed up to speak on this, I believe. This is an evidentiary hearing, so if there are folks who are going to be testifying, I will swear them in at the appropriate time. And let's start off with staff, Mr. Cofield.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Board. For the record, I'm Dexter Cofield with Urban Design Section.
Mr. Cofield, hold on one second. I just want to check. Mr. Giraldo, can you hear him?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ms. Cofield. Keep going.
Item number 5 is detailed site plan DSP-23020 Central Industrial Park, which requests a change to the list of permitted uses for the subject property within a light industrial zone development district overlay zone, in order to allow a contractor's office and site improvements to parking and pedestrian circulation. Subject DSP does not propose any new structures on the property. The site will be improved with 1 new bike rack, construction of a pedestrian pathway, and 7 parking spaces. Please note, 2 citizens did sign up to speak on this item. I have reached out to them and answered any questions they had regarding the application. With that, the Urban Design staff recommends that the Planning Board adopt the findings of this report and recommend to the District Council approval of the detailed site plan DSP-23020 Central Industrial Park, subject to the conditions of approval within the technical staff report. Please, this concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cofield. Commissioners, unless there's any questions for staff, we'll turn to Mr. Howler.
Good
Floor is
morning,
yours.
Mr. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Great. Thank you once again, Thomas Howler. I'm an attorney with offices here in Largo, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant and owner of the property in this detailed site plan application. I would like to thank Mr. Cofield for his assistance in working through this application with us. And we are in full agreement with the staff's recommendations and the recommended conditions. This property has a somewhat tortured history, and I could keep you here all day listening to it, but I won't do that to you.
Thank you.
You have a short agenda. I do want to note that the owner of the property is American Resource Management Group, and the principal owner of that entity, Mr. Bob Bilo, who's also on today, is the owner of a company called Dyco. Dyco has been in business in Prince George's County since 1969. They're currently located in the Bladensburg area, and they bought this property to relocate their facilities here in 2020. However, because of subdivision and zoning issues, they have not yet been able to occupy the property. Dyco installs foundations. They install residential foundations, they install commercial foundations, they install custom foundations. And if your basement leaks, they also fix that too. But they have installed over 60,000 residential foundations in Prince George's County since 1969. And so they want to stay in Prince George's County. They bought this location to move here, and it is perfect for their operations. But they, because of the restrictions which exist, have not been able to do that. The approval of this site plan will allow them to now occupy the property, and they are excited at the opportunity to be able to do that. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding specifics of the request, but we do support staff's recommendation and their recommended conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Howler. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant at this point?
No.
No questions. Let me go to the sign-up list to see if we have folks signed up. I have a Danielle Champion and a Kalita Forbes. Either one here? All right, then we have, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? No, Mr. Howler, I will give you the final word.
I am good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then with that, Commissioners, I will close this public hearing and turn to you all for any deliberation or action.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and recommend to District Council approval of DSP-23020, subject to the condition as outlined in staff's report.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington and a second by Commissioner Giraldo under discussion. Mr. Howler, this was a long time coming. I imagine you have a happy client right now.
He's getting there. He's getting there. I wish you could approve this, but you can only recommend approval at this point.
All right, fair enough. No further discussion. I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Have a
all.
great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Cofield, as well. Next item 6 on our agenda. This is detailed site plan DSP 24009 International Church of Christ, a tenant fit out. We have Mr. Kenner, who is representing the app presentation. We have a number of folks signed up to speak, nobody in opposition, mostly with the applicant's team. This is an evidentiary hearing, so Mr. Kenner, if anyone else is going to be speaking, we'll swear them into the appropriate time. I will start with staff. Ms. Kosak.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Board. For the record, I am Jill Kozak from the Urban Design section, here sitting in today for David Meyerholtz, who reviewed this application. Item number 6 is detailed site plan DSP 24009, which proposes interior modifications to an existing 9,846 square foot building for use as a church on a 1.23 acre lot under the prior zoning ordinance. There are no modifications proposed to the existing site layout. Prior to the February 25th noon deadline, the applicant submitted applicants exhibits 1 and 2 as additional backup, which includes designs and locations for 2 signs that the applicant would like to include in this application. The first is a building mounted sign that will face Orleans Avenue right away, featuring the church's name and logo using backlit metal letters. The second is an illuminated freestanding sign that will face the Marlboro Pike right of way. Staff reviewed both signs and finds that they meet the requirements of section 27-617 of the prior zoning ordinance for institutional signs. However, the DSP needs to be revised to include the sign locations and details. Therefore, staff recommends the addition of 1 new condition, which would be condition 1F, and would read as follows. Provide details and locations for the proposed building mounted and freestanding signs in accordance with applicants' exhibits 1 and 2. If the DSP is approved by the planning board today, staff would also add a finding relative to the proposed signs in the resolution. Based on this evaluation and analysis, Urban Design staff recommends the planning board adopt the findings of this report, including the applicant's exhibits, and approve DSP 24009, subject to the recommended conditions of approval with the addition of the new condition 1F as read into the record today. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Kosak. Thanks to Mr. Meyerholtz for all the work behind the scenes. Commissioners, if there's no questions for staff at this point, I'll turn to the applicant. I do have Roland Kenner. Is it Mr. Kenner who's going to be speaking, or is there somebody else? Okay.
Yes, this is going to be his wife. Both of us are here. My name is Terry Kenner.
Ms. Kenner, for the sake of being as thorough as possible, I am going to swear you all in.
Okay.
So if you all could raise your right hand, please, both of you, if you're going to be speaking. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Consider yourselves under oath, and the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you. My name again is Terry Kenner, and I'm honored to be here today alongside Bishop Roland Kenner, our dedicated project team, as well as several staff members and congregants of International Church of Christ. We would like to first extend our sincere gratitude for the esteemed Planning Review Board and the dedicated staff of Maryland National Park and Planning for the opportunity to speak before you. We are delighted about moving into the new church home at 7515 Marlboro Pike, and even more excited about the positive impact that we'll have on the community. At International Church of Christ, our mission is to empower, equip, and educate individuals spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically through our various ministry programs and fellowship and outreach initiatives. We strive to support families, individuals, and youth in a meaningful and transformative way. In addition to our regular services, we will have various programs, educational programs, mentoring programs, job readiness training, safety training. We'll have programming for, of course, our seniors. We are very much into outreach and assisting the community. Our vision extends beyond our walls of the church. We are committed to build a strong relationship and collaborative efforts with our local churches, school, businesses, law enforcement, and our dignitaries to bring vital resources to the community. Some of our planned outreach efforts, as we have done prior, and we will continue to do, we'll continue to be there to provide food and clothes giveaway, toy giveaways. We do Thanksgiving baskets. We also do scholarships, school supplies. We plan to adopt a school. We plan to really embed ourselves into the community, be that beacon of light. We sincerely appreciate your time and consideration. We respectfully request your approval of our project as we take the next steps in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the kind words and appreciate all the work you do in the community. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
No.
No questions. I don't think we have anyone else who signed up to speak on this. Do you have anyone else from your side?
No.
Then with that, I will close this public hearing and I will turn to my colleagues for any deliberation or action.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve DSP-24009, subject to the conditions as outlined in staff's report, further to include a new condition 1F as read into the record by staff, in addition to the associated finding that will accompany the new condition 1F.
Second,
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. With no discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you all very much. And Ms. Kosak, thank you to you as well. Ms. Connor, any further business to come before the planning board today?
There is no further business. Thank
All
you.
right, then with that, without objection, colleagues, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.